Hello, my dear students. Welcome to SJ's classes. If you're on my channel for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you have friends who might need video lessons on topic in English language and literature, please do share this channel's link to them. This video lesson is part of my lecture series on the paper Art and Literary Aesthetics, which is the complementary paper that University of Kerala has prescribed for BA English Language and Literature students in their second semester. Earlier, I posted video lessons on Herbert Reed's book The Meaning of Art and Delacroix's painting Liberty Leading the People. You can access these video lessons by checking the Art and Literary Aesthetics playlist. In this video, I shall interpret to you the poem Destruction of the Bastille, written by the famous romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. I'm sure you don't need an introduction to Coleridge, but here are some of the few important points that you must remember regarding Coleridge. Samuel Taylor Coleridge is one among that generation of writers who brought a sea change in English verse. Of course, he is the most representative poet of the Romantic age. As literature students, we remember about his collaboration with Wordsworth and how the publication of lyrical ballads in 1798 initiated a new age in English literature, which we call as Romantic Age. In poetry, Coleridge is best known for compositions such as The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Frost at Midnight, Christabel, and Kubla Khan. He also wrote on educational, social, political, and religious matters in some of his works like Lectures on Politics and Religion, Lay Sermons, and on the Constitution of the Church and the State. He was also popular as a literary critic. His literary criticism includes detailed studies of Shakespeare and Milton and a highly influential text, Biographia Literaria, that came out in 1870. Now, something about the poem that we will read today. Destruction of the Bastille was composed by Samuel Taylor Coleridge in 1789. It has profound connections with the French Revolution. The French Revolution, as you know, was a watershed event in modern European history that began in 1789 and ended in the late 1790s with the ascent of Napoleon Bonaparte. The upheaval was caused by widespread discontent with the French monarchy and the poor economic policies of King Louis XVI. Now, something about this infrastructure, this building which was called Bastille. The Bastille was a fortress in Paris, built in the 14th century, and it played an important role in the internal conflicts of France. It had become a dreaded symbol of oppression and exploitation. It was seen by the revolutionaries as a symbol of the monarchy's abuse of power. It was stormed by a crowd on 14 July 1789. The event later became one of the defining moments in the French Revolution that followed. So it's also said that this particular event triggered French Revolution, the storming of Bastille by a crowd. When the prison which was there in this Bastille was used as a sort of a prison. When this prison was attacked, it actually held only 7 prisoners, but the mob had not gathered for them. So it was not actually to free these prisoners that the mob, the crowd, gathered there. They had come to demand the huge ammunition stores held within the prison walls. So there were huge ammunition, weapons stored inside this fortress. So it was to gather these ammunition that they gathered. When the prison governor refused to comply, the mob charged and after a violent battle eventually took hold of the building. The governor was seized and killed, his head carried round the streets on a spike. It is said that the event served as a flashpoint in the French Revolution. What is the word flashpoint? In international relations, a flashpoint is an area of dispute that has a strong possibility of developing into a war. So Bastille served as a flashpoint. That's why I earlier said that this particular storming or the seizing of this fortress is one of the reasons for the beginning of French Revolution. And now coming to relation between French Revolution and Romanticism or the Romantic writers, the French Revolution and Romanticism are two cardinal movements which have produced great politicians, thinkers, dramatists, and poets. The Romantic poets were inspired by the ideals of equality, fraternity, and liberty. I'm sure you have heard these three words, and these three words served as something like a motto of the French Revolution. So they were inspired by these ideals of equality, liberty, and fraternity. They revolted against the tyranny of set formulas, rules, and conventions. So I hope you know that Romanticism was in a way a revolt to these things that existed earlier, these ideals, set formulas, rules, and conventions that existed earlier. That's why you might have heard it earlier that Romanticism was a response to the earlier age. Romanticism began as a response to the earlier age or the conventions that were followed during the earlier age. These writers, these romantic writers, they asserted the dignity of individual spirit, and this new form of philosophy became one of the main guidelines of the new school of romantic poets, writers, and philosophers. Romantic literature reflects in innumerable ways the radical social and political upheavals of its age, especially with respect to French Revolution. This poem by Coleridge is one such reflection. Although the poem was composed following the Bastille's destruction, it was not published until 1834. Now, you might also want to note that stanzas 2 and 3 of this poem are missing, as the manuscript that contained Coleridge's poetry, which was titled Ottery Copybook. Ottery is a name of the town in England where Coleridge was born. So, in the manuscript, these pages were torn. These pages were actually missing. So as we read, you'll find stanzas 2 and 3 missing, and the reason is that it was missing from the original manuscript titled Ottery Copy Book. Now let's read the poem. Heardest thou yon universal cry? Coleridge begins the poem by stating that we have heard your cry, and this cry is coming from a distance. That's the meaning of the word yon. And this cry is also universal. Universal means something that can be experienced or felt by anyone, anywhere in the world. And dost thou linger still on Gallia's shore? Coleridge addresses someone and asks, do you still linger? Linger means spend time at a particular place. So do you still linger on Gallia's shore? Gallia is an ancient region of Western Europe that included what is now northern Italy, France, Belgium, a part of Germany, and the Netherlands. So he asks, does thou linger still on Gallia's shore? Go tyranny. So it's in the third line that we understand who Coleridge addressed in the second line. He addressed tyranny. You might have noticed that it's an example for personification. And there are two ways to understand that it's an example for personification. The first letter has been capitalized, and also he talks to it as if he is talking to a human being. Go tyranny, go away. So it's an example for personification. You will find numerous examples for personification in this particular poem. So the very first example for personification is tyranny. Go tyranny, beneath some barbarous sky, thy terrors lost and ruined power deplore. Coleridge says, go tyranny. Tyranny is a form of government in which the ruler is the absolute dictator. And this case, it's King Louis XVI. Go tyranny, go beneath some barbarous sky. Now, Coleridge tells tyranny, go somewhere where there is no culture or manners, where people are barbaric, because that's where he belongs. That's where the tyrannizer, King Louis XVI, belongs. Your ability to create fear has been lost, and you mourn or regret strongly about your ruined or lost power. So you have lost your ability to create fear, and now you mourn your lost ability or your lost power. What though through many a groaning age was felt thy keen suspicious rage, yet freedom roused by fear's disdain. Again, you have two examples for personification here. One is freedom and the other is disdain. So Coleridge says, what though through many a groaning age was felt thy keen suspicious rage, yet freedom roused by fear's disdain has wildly broke thy triple chain, and like the storm which earth's deep entrails hide, at length has burst its way and spread the ruins wide. So many ages have felt your rage, but finally freedom aroused, and it aroused from fear's disdain. Disdain is the feeling that someone or something is unworthy of one's respect or consideration. So freedom arose from this fear's disdain, this fear's lack of respect for the king, and it wildly broke the triple chain. Triple here could be the three motto of the French Revolution, which are liberty, equality, and fraternity, which was more or less the slogan of the revolution. These were denied to the people by the autocratic ruler. The freedom which arose from fear's disdain, just like the storm in the innermost part of the earth, have come out and created a wide destruction. That is how he ends stanza number 1. Now, as I said earlier, stanza 2 and 3 are missing. Therefore, we will move on to stanza number 4. In sighs their sickly breath was spent, each gleam of hope had ceased the long, long day to cheer. So when do you sigh? You sigh when you are in stress, or you are anxious, or you are sad, or in despair. Coleridge says that in the sighs of the poor, or the ones who were victimized, or ones who took part in the revolution, the sickly breath of their oppressors depleted. Each gleam means a ray or a flash. Each gleam or flash of hope that these revolutionaries got ceased or gradually ended the long day of cheer and merrymaking done by the oppressors. So each ray of hope that the revolutionaries got from it, the long merrymaking which were done by the oppressors gradually diminished. Or if delusive in some flitting dream, it gave them to their friends and children dear, awaked by lordly insults sound, to all the doubled horrors round, oft shrunk they from oppression's band, while anguish raised the desperate hand for silent death, or lost the mind's control through every burning vein would tides of frenzy roll. So you have other examples for personification in this stanza as well. Oppression, anguish, frenzy, all these are examples for personification. Now, this part of the stanza describes the kind of mental anguish that the people were in. The mental anguish that led them to give sighs often that would deplete their oppressor's breath or life. Now, thereby, Coleridge established a connection with the first part of this stanza. So, this is how he creates or connects both these parts in the fourth stanza. He says that even in dreams they used to be awaked by the insults and horrors created by the aristocratic elite or the nobility, and most often they shrunk or drew back from their oppressor's hand. While this happened on one side, anguish, which is personified here and is representative of the extreme mental pain and suffering they had to undergo, it raises their hand in a desperate manner with tides of frenzy or mental agitation burning through their veins. Now, basically, what Coleridge intends to convey here is that it is a severe suffering they had to confront that made them revolt or take part in the revolution. Moving on to stanza number 5. But cease, ye pitying bosoms, cease to bleed. Coleridge says it has to stop. He states it to the pitying bosoms, the people who share this suffering. Cease to bleed, meaning stop extinguishing yourself, stop losing your lives, stop extinguishing yourself in the profound anguish. Such scenes no more demand the tear humane. Such scenes, meaning the scenes of terror and anguish, no more demand the tear humane, meaning the ones who create these scenes of terror and anguish do not deserve a tear or a humane approach. The lines could also be interpreted as Coleridge is asking the ones who suffer to stop crying over the terror and anguish they face and to act against their oppressors. I see, I see, glad liberty succeed, with every patriot virtue in her train. So Coleridge kind of makes a symbolic statement here. He states that he sees liberty, again personified, who succeeded in this agitation or revolution with the virtuous nature or qualities of all those who are in the revolution, and he is glad to see that. So how did liberty succeed? Through the virtue which was there in all the patriots. And mark yon peasant's raptured eyes, secure he views his harvest rise, nor fetter while the mind shall know, and eloquence shall fearless glow. Yes, liberty, the soul of life shall reign, shall throb in every pulse, shall flow through every vein. So Coleridge concludes this stanza by telling the people to remember the eyes of the peasant. Peasant means a farmer, and this peasant or farmer, he is at a distance from them, and the peasant, he is with a raptured eyes, meaning his eyes are filled with emotions. And why does his eyes fill with emotions? Because he sees the crops gradually making it to harvest. What Coleridge intends to convey here is that the victory is not far away. It will surely come, and therefore you don't have to fetter your mind. Meaning you don't have to chain your mind with vile or wicked thoughts. Eloquence has also been personified in this stanza, and eloquence means one who has the ability to speak eloquently or in a persuasive manner. So eloquence shall shine intensely and fearlessly. What Coleridge intends to say is that you can speak out your mind. Liberty, which Coleridge describes as the soul of life, shall reign or rule, and it will throb or find expression in every pulse of the people, and shall flow through the veins of the people, meaning we will soon taste victory. And as part of this victory, we will taste or experience what is called freedom, liberty. Moving on to stanza number 6. Shall France alone a despot spurn? So will it be only France that spurn? Spurn means refuse with contempt. So will it be only France that refuse with contempt a despot? Despot means a cruel and oppressive dictator. Shall she alone of freedom boast thy care? So shall France alone boast about how liberty or freedom took care of them? Meaning, will it be only the French who taste victory and freedom in this fight against tyranny by the despots? Lo, round thy standard Belgia's heroes burn. So, lo is an archaic expression, and it's used to draw our attention to something. And it says, lo, round your standard. Standard here should mean an upright pole or beam, which might be indicative of the flag. So he says, look round or beyond your flag or country, and then you will see how the heroes of Belgium burn under the same despotic ruler. So when we go through the history, we understand that the French Revolutionary Wars led to Belgium becoming part of France in 1795, and then happened the Belgium Revolution, which led to the establishment of the independent kingdom of Belgium. So it was not just France, but also Belgium that was struggling for freedom. So that is what he conveys through the line, lo, around thy standard Belgia's heroes burn. Through power's blood-stained streamers fire the air. Through is an informal or literary way of saying through. So through power's blood-stained streamers fire the air. So Belgium's heroes seem to burn through the powers. Again, an example for personification here. Power has been personified. Power's blood-stained streamers, meaning the blood-stained flags of the despot or the cruel or oppressive dictator that fire the air. And wider yet thy influence spread, not ever recline thy weary head, till every land from pole to pole shall boast one independent soul, and still as erst let favored Britain be first ever of the first and freest of the free. So finally, Coleridge concludes the poem by making something like a request to liberty or freedom. He asks it to spread its influence far and wide and not to recline. Recline means to rest. So not to recline your weary means tired. So not to recline your weary head till every land from pole to pole or end to end has been liberated. He also wants Britain to be, like earlier, first of the first and freest of the free. So what he wants is actually he wants his country to be above everything else, and also wants his country to be the one that is freest of the free, meaning a place where you have the utmost freedom. That's how he concludes the poem. So that's all. Thank you so much for watching this video lesson. As I said at the very outset of this discussion, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and also share this channel's link to the ones who might need video lessons on topics in English language and literature. Thank you so much.